Hello and welcome back to the Inside NBL Supercoach show, our weekly show. It's the preseason Blitz week, and as always, we're brought here today by the Standard Squeeze, Ryan from Astute Newstead. I'm Mattrix, and I'm here with Hammer. Mate, how's your Wednesday?
Mate, it's good. The Blitz keeps rolling on, and the news just keeps getting bigger out of the NBL. So I'm pretty excited to unpack this one tonight. There's heaps to talk about. What's on the schedule?
Mate, look, on today's show, we're going to go through the breaking news. We're going to do a bit of a Blitz breakdown. We haven't been on for a couple days. We're
Yep.
going to have a segment called Fool's Gold, which I think might make a regular appearance during the week. And Center of Attention, which is us, targeting those centers, coming in and, picking who's viable and who's not. Look, subscribe, and follow us on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Audible. You do get your premium and exclusive ad-free content on our Patreon. And, mate, is your team changing as often as mine is?
By the minute. Every time I think I've got it figured out, something else happens. And I think every time I talk to you, you talk me out of something, we start again. So let's hope with 8 days out from the season, we can start to really land on something. And probably the same for our community team. There's a lot of chatter going around in some of our platforms on that.
Yeah, sounds good, mate. Well, let's head into the breaking news because I think each of these breaking news things affects my actual Supercoach team.
100%.
It's time for some news from around the league.
Mate, start us off.
Well, the big one, Montrezl Harrell has signed as an injury replacement, replacing Jarrell Martin with Adelaide 36ers. So pretty much everything we talked about on the last pod with your lap main and all these permutations we discussed about the 4 spot, looks like Montrezl Harrell's coming there. Now, you're the NBA buff out of the two of us. You do the NBA fantasy, you follow the league closely. Tell me about this guy.
Look, Montrezl Harrell, he is an undersized 5, and I call him a 5 because the man just cannot stretch the floor. He's only 6'7". So in this team, I think he might be able to maybe play the backup center, which is where I'm really excited with him about. But where I think the NBL gets so good is the power forwards seem to stretch the floor, and this man will not do that. If we go back to his last look, he did his ACL and basically bounced out of the league. I am slightly concerned that he is just going to come in and try and earn himself a spot on an NBA roster, which is completely fine. But I think we can expect in 21 minutes per game, he always shot at about 65%, only about 20% from 3, less than 70% from the free throw line. But he does get rebounds, does get like 5 rebounds per game. He's peaked at about 7 in 27 minutes when he was at his peak. He was, of course, the 6th man of the year in the NBA as well. But yeah, just don't expect too many assists, steals. He's too small to get blocks. I'm worried his game won't translate to NBL, but he's definitely probably going to be the most talented player when he walks onto the floor a lot of games. So I'm honestly still not sure how to unpack this.
Yeah, and we're not going to get a look at him in the preseason either. So look, Corey's in the chat. What's he going to be priced around? My bet is the 277 new import price.
Yep.
Yeah, look, I've had a look at his highlights. He seems just to be able to finish. He has no outside game. He's not quite as all round as Jarrell Martin is. It's not really a like for like replacement. But this is a league where undersized bigs have done really well in the past. So look, I'm going to keep an eye on it. But the thing with Adelaide is they only signed 2 imports to start with. So if they like him, and like you say, if he's going to become the backup 5 because they're thin up front, all they have to do is release a local and they can have him, Jarrell Martin, and Isaac Humphries, and that's a pretty formidable front line.
Mate, probably as I was listening to you talk, I was like, how do you explain him? And you mentioned the finishing. He's just got that dog in him. Like,
Yeah.
I think he's just a winner. And I think just by being on the floor, he's going to make everybody better around him. But I'm just really worried that not being able to stretch the floor, of course, Hump doesn't stretch the floor either.
No.
I'm just not sure of the fit.
It is hard when you're pairing two non-shooting bigs together in a league like this. The only upside I'm really seeing, though, is he's paired with a pretty elite point guard, and this guy just wants to throw everything down. So I think he's going to benefit from having Kendrick Davis around him. But you're right. I don't know where the other stats going to come from. Are him and Hump going to be competing for rebounds? I'm not sure. I'm still sitting on the fence with this one, but there's been some more news out of the far north.
Mate, Taron Armstrong is out for the Blitz, but not only the Blitz. It's the first 2 games of the regular season. And I've got in the notes deja vu, anyone. How did the start of the year go for you and Taron Armstrong last year, mate?
Yeah, look, if anyone subscribed to our Patreon and read my article about boosts, you'll know that I blew one on the second week after holding Taron Armstrong when they said he'd only be out for 1 week and end up being about
This is a
3.
PG podcast.
Yeah, this was just horrendous. Yeah, I was off Taron a little bit anyway. I've been having discussions with a few mates about this. I was so high on him coming out of college. The way he passed the ball, his assists, I was excited for him to come into the league and be like 12 points, 6 to 8 assists. I know a lot of the guys in the experts chat were predicting last year that he'd lead the league in assists as a rookie, which was probably a bit out there, but 2 assists a game hasn't cut it for me. And what I've seen so far, I think the price is at 200K is probably where it's going to stay for quite a while. So I was jumping off him anyway. But it's a big problem for Cairns, isn't it? Because they've got McCoy out, 58,000, very nice price, solid role. He would have been playing big minutes had he not have slipped up and been charged with a DUI. But hey, who's going to get the minutes in Cairns now? Is it Kyle Adnam back? Is it Rob Edwards?
Yeah, honestly, I was sitting there having a look, and I was like, can they play Antonio? Like, I honestly don't know. Like, but it's going to be somebody cheap, and I think with Ken's schedule, we can just have a look to start. But if you can work it out, hey, there's some value to be had because we know how these injuries go. 2 weeks turns into 3 weeks, turns into being careful about their franchise player. And
yeah.
And
that's probably the biggest lesson I took out of Taron last year is do not hold through injury. Just cut your losses and move on. What else have we got out of news, Matt?
Mate, this was one that you brought up to me, and 69K Kelly LaPaupe. You've got some news for him.
Yeah, look, I was listening to the Olgan and Pete Hawley podcast this morning. They've been doing the rounds around the Blitz, talking to a lot of people, and we'd already commented on this, that he'd been starting every game in the Blitz, and Cam Oliver was coming off the bench. The word they're hearing confirms that, and that's probably the way it's going to stay. And look, it's possibly a good move. The way that team is so stacked, it's probably good to have a role player like Kelly out there. Sets hard screens, he passes well, he rebounds. He's very undersized as the 5, but you've got Xavier Cooks as the 4. This leaves Space Cam Oliver as the leader of that second unit, and he has been tearing it up with that second unit against the benches of other teams. So, look, he's a guy we might talk about a bit later on. I know he's not centre eligible, but he's a forward. At 69K, I'm seeing a bit of upside there. If you are trying to spend a bit more on your court and keep some dollars free on your bench, perhaps something to look at.
Yeah, look, I'm interested. Honestly, my ears prick up as soon as I can get one of these bottom dollar players, just because of the upgrades. Maybe I can get somebody from, say, Taron Armstrong, all the way up to an import price player. So, yeah.
Yeah, and especially like with our cotton build last pod, if you're paying up for one of these premium guys, you're going to have to, cheap out on the bench somewhere. And if you're going to get these 69K guys who are actually going to play, there's some real gold there.
Mate, let's head into the Blitz. And, mate, we finished up during this game, basically, the other night, and that was the Cairns Taipans versus the Kings. The Kings took care of them. This was the first sort of look that we got of Taron Armstrong not playing. Mate, what did you take from this one? I saw Edwards 14 points. Kyron Galloway, bit of a bounce back game and starting there.
Yep.
And then Wardenberg out there with Pedro Bradshaw and Groves. Wardenberg scored 4 points, but everybody else scored 13 plus in their minutes.
Yep. Yeah, look, I haven't been impressed with Wardenberg. Have you?
No, he's been awful. Some of the turnovers he had at the end of that other game cost them. So
Yeah. Yeah, look, going by Supercoach scores, Tanner Groves 32 again. Look, that's solid. He's outperformed expectations we had. I actually like his game. He's well rounded. He can stretch the floor. He can play the 4, the 5. He passes really well. Pedro Bradshaw, bit funky. I think Rob Edwards is actually the better player out of the two, but his game's not as fantasy friendly. But these three are going to play big minutes, especially with Taran out. I don't see them being able to go to the bench a whole lot.
Yeah. The one I was looking at, because sometimes it's not what you spend, it's what you save, was
I missed this one.
was Kyron Galloway, because we were off him. We had drawn a line from him, and then we start to see him get some minutes, and we start to see him performing. This is more in line with what we saw last year. 14 points, 4 rebounds, 3 blocks. He was negative 18 on the floor. Of course, he was probably playing when the best Sydney players, and I think we both consider Sydney the best team in the comp. What did you take of Kyron's game?
Look, we got to remember he's still young. It's rocks and diamonds with him. You're going to get these great scores. And the good thing about him is it doesn't take much, and you don't need to call his number and run plays for him to get a good score, because of that length, he's going to get those blocks, he's going to get those steals, a few rebounds. He can have a pretty ordinary looking stat line and still score well fantasy-wise. So, look, I want to see a bigger sample size. I was high on him. If this is what we can expect more often than not, I'm back in. What about you? Like, the price is good.
So I was off him. I was like, let's put a line through him. But now with an extra spot sort of being, like, not his position, but if they're just getting their best guys out on the floor, maybe Kyron does get an uptick of minutes. And if Adam Ford decides he's going to get funky with his lineups, which he kind of did in this game, it was Edwards, Bradshaw, Galloway, Wardenberg, and Groves. That's a huge starting lineup.
Yeah, and if Armstrong's going to be out, you'd expect the 3 imports, well at least Pedro and Rob Edwards, to shift down one. So Rob would play the 1, Pedro moves from the 3 to the 2, which opens up that sort of 3 to 4 spot for Galloway.
Because I don't think Jonah Antonio, Statman, anybody like that is good enough to play more than 12 minutes a night.
No, remember, Statman's a development player, and your Bullets didn't even want him. So if they don't want him, I don't think anyone's going to really want him that much. Look, kid came out of college with a whole lot of potential, a lot of hype. Hasn't lived up to it. It's been a DP on 3 teams now. I wouldn't be going anywhere near him for Supercoach purposes. But yeah, there's some interesting sort of developments out of that game. But Sydney, that side of the ledger was very, very, very tasty with Cam Oliver. We talked about him coming off the bench, anchoring that second unit. Once again, massive stat line, double-double, 45 Supercoach points. But they had contributions from everyone. Isaiah Liafa popped up with 39 Supercoach points, Bull Quoll 29. Xavier Cooks only had the 20. I'm calling him fool's gold. We might touch on that later in the segment. But Kelly Lepepe, 13 Supercoach points with a price tag of 69,000. That's above break even. How are you feeling about that guy right now?
I'm still not going to do it. I just think I can find some more value elsewhere, maybe at Perth or something like that if I'm going to go bottom dollar. Look, I like the sentiment. I think it could work out for people. But I think if they're just getting their best players out on the floor and you've got blokes like Galloway, even Tyler Robertson, Cam Oliver, all these people coming off the bench, I do think Lepalpe, even if he's starting, it's not going to be huge.
No, but at that price, well, think about this, right? So what's Sydney's schedule through the first 3 rounds? Have you got that up there? They're a single for round 1. Round 2, they go on to the double. All right. So through 2 rounds, he's played 3 games, gets a price rise before someone like Rocco gets a price rise. So if you can massage between the forward centre position and somehow get there, perhaps you can get a price rise out of him, then jump on the Rocco bandwagon. Talking cheapy big men.
Yeah, look, I don't hate it. I'm just not sure.
Don't love it either.
Yeah. I don't hate it. Like, I understand the logic behind it.
Yeah.
And I just think there's probably, like, do we think Tyler Robertson might get more minutes than Lapalpe? Like,
I don't think so. We've hardly seen him. I feel like out of any of them, he's probably one who may miss out. And they'll say, you're on a 3-year deal, earn your stripes. I see Lepepe getting a lot more opportunity than Tyler Robertson.
Yeah, let's save all the Xavier Cooks chat for a bit later because I've got a fair bit to say on him.
Unleashed.
Yeah. I don't want to mention Phil this early in the season, but he's got me cooking there.
Brisbane, Melbourne?
Yeah, Brisbane, Melbourne. Brisbane did win this one. Dangadell impressed with 19 real points. Harrison, man, I wish the schedule was better.
You know what? I am so tempted even despite the schedule. It seems to happen every year. There is a player that you must have, but the schedule just doesn't allow it. There were teams like that last year. But he had the 44 Supercoach points, and he was in foul trouble for a lot of the game. He finished on the 4 fouls, but sat a lot throughout the evening. 44 Supercoach points. Dangadell had the 37. Casey Prather chipped in with 29 Supercoach points. Is there anything you liked out of that guy?
Man, I'm still interested in Casey Prather. He's only 130K. Like, you're talking about value. You're talking about 69K guys that get you 13 points. I think if you can spend up a little bit and get somebody like Casey Prather, dollar for dollar, exactly the same. You're going to get price rises while still getting more decent points. Look, I'm okay with it. I know that you have your concerns about some of the players that are out, but look, I haven't actually got word that Bannon's going to be there to start the season.
Yeah, look, we'll unpack that a little bit later on because I'm definitely not as high on Prather as you are. I'm not on that Prather train just yet, but you've talked me into stupider things. Look, Melbourne, this is where it really gets good for us because Melbourne have the good early schedule. The only team that starts with doubles in rounds 2 and 3, so very relevant. And my guy, Shea Illy, 39 Supercoach points. This was impressive.
And he's the guy that assists a lot in this team. No Delhi in this one. So that's my concern. I'm not sure we're going to see 26 minutes per night. And how many Supercoach points did you say?
39.
39. And that's great, but you start to take 6 minutes out of it. And then suddenly, it's 30, which, again, is more than value, especially when they're playing doubles. But at 250K, it's not as good a value as maybe you expect.
Yeah, well, see, I feel like that 26 minutes, that'll be where he's at. I think when Delhi comes back, you're going to move the import to the bench where he comes off as the 6th man. Some of those other guys like your Tanner Krebs, they played some extended burn. I feel like they will run Delhi and Illy together for long periods. CG coming at the 3 spot. I feel like that might be thereabouts. He's improved over the off-season. He's got a scoring. He actually looks to score now, which is a nice change and is a bit more friendly to his fantasy game where he's not as reliant on steals and stuff. But another guy out of Melbourne, Jack White. You've been high on him from the get-go. 36 Supercoach points, and he looked like he'd turn a corner. Double-double.
It's a lock. You just honestly, you just cannot download the Supercoach app without Jack White being the first person you add.
It's almost like MySpace, isn't it? Where you automatically get Tom as a friend.
You just get Jack White as a VC, maybe. You just get Jack White as a VC.
Yeah, Yeah, standard. Standard
Um,
issue.
let's stay away from the centers because we're going to have a chat about them
Yeah.
in a little bit. But there's nobody else really that I want to talk about. Ian Clark scored really well in that one. I don't think that's going to happen. I think his minutes definitely get eat. If I'm worried about Illy's minutes getting eaten up by Delhi, Ian Clark's minutes are definitely getting eaten up by Delhi.
Yeah, for sure. Last night's game, really relevant one. We'd flagged this to keep our eye on all over our Twitter throughout the day. Illawarra, the debut of Darius Days, the power forward. We were really interested to see how he went and how this affected our man Lockie Aldridge. What was your take from this one?
It affected our man Lockie Aldridge.
Or did Lockie Aldridge's 5 turnovers affect Lockie Aldridge?
Yeah, true. For starters, they moved him to the bench. So
I
whether
think that
that's
was
right or
expected.
wrong, they're paying import money for Days.
Yeah.
So yeah, they've moved Lockie Aldridge for the
Probably for the
bench.
season.
They've given him 15 minutes and he wasn't fantastic.
Mm-hmm. But he started
Um,
well. I didn't watch it. I saw I was tracking the stats. Quarter time, he was out of the gates well.
he didn't miss a shot all game.
Mm.
So, there's definitely positives to take, but I do think looking at this, you're going to lose a few more minutes from Peakling, right? You're probably going to give Day those minutes. He's not going to play 21 minutes. He's probably more going to play 24. I do think Aldrich is probably just going to play that 15, 16 minutes, which is better than value.
Yeah.
But maybe not the absolute gun that we thought 2 weeks ago.
But I also feel like Aldridge is your first choice too as your backup centre. So we get a bit of foul trouble with Sam. There's minutes there as well. So I think he's going to split it between the 4 and the 5. I still think there's some value with Aldridge. I want to see a bigger sample size. But at that price of 121,000, I don't think you can go too wrong. He's playable on your bench, which is more than you can say about a lot of those other cheapies. On the other side of that game was Perth. Now, you probably wouldn't have picked this, but Perth had a young buck by the name of Ben Henschel lead all Supercoach scorers with a massive score of 40. He started the game with no Ty Webster, and from the get-go, he just looked like he belonged. Is this signs of things to come?
He did this to us last year, man.
Oh, yeah.
He did this to us last year and he just disappeared. I'm hoping the extra year was enough for him to have earned the confidence of his coach. But he seemed to cook last year. And then he just dropped right off, wasn't getting minutes, was playing in garbage time. They've signed Elijah Pepper. I know in the app it says forward guard, whatever. Henschel and Pepper are very similar. It's suppose if you want that offense, if you want that defense, that sort of stuff. But I'd be playing Henschel, but I'm just not sure if the coach will. I think he was just cooking in this one and they just rolled with it.
Yeah, look, we'll probably unpack this one a bit later because, I called him fool's gold last year after he burned us. I've called him fool's gold early this year, but I'm getting itchy, man. He's tempting me. Other news out of this one, Cotton had the 18, but he was rested a fair bit. Pepper came on 20 Supercoach points, but most of that was racked up during garbage time. It was nothing really exceptional outside of that. And keeping in mind there was no Dylan Windler who's out. I posted that on the Twitter this week. They're expecting him to take a while to work his way into the rotation. Apparently he's come in not completely in shape. They're hoping he'll be up for 12 to 15 minutes early on and build from there. So we were high on him when he first signed, but he may do us a real favour and drop a lot in price before that really nice bit of the Perth schedule.
No, I rate that. Almanza's still on my list. I think he's still going to get these 20 minutes a night. And this is a stat line that you can expect for him, like 8, 4, and 4, which honestly translates well. What's that, 25 Supercoach points? That's a value.
Yeah, at 115K to park on your bench, they've got that block of doubles coming up at that point in the season. The 4 spot is a bit of a logjam. right? You got Doolittle, you got Hiram Harris, you've got Almanza, you've got potentially Windler playing some small ball 4 when they want to stretch it. But I really think the ability for Almanza to go between the 4 and the 5 and back up Pinder's minutes as well is what's going to get him across. Excuse me, across the line for us.
Yeah, sounds good, man. That was very Supercoach relevant. But earlier today, we had the Adelaide 36ers play the New Zealand Breakers. And, of course, all eyes are on Adelaide at the moment. And he was one of the first guys I added to start off with. But Davis just he just looks great every time he steps out on the floor. This guy's just a baller.
He's elite. There's a reason he hasn't left either of our squads since the game opened. And I feel like this is really starting to look like what the minute spread will be for the Adelaide 36ers. He played 28. DJ 3J played 36. Humphreys played 24. So, look, we know, or what I feel is that we're going to get some really consistent minutes and big minutes for our stars. We had 23 points, 5 rebounds, 4 assists, and a block, racking up the Supercoach points. And I think we'll expect that week in, week out, and he'll only get better.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of his game, and honestly, just so we did a build last episode. Go back, scroll to about 3/4 of the way through, and have a look at the build that we made with Cotton. How good Kendrick Davis has been is probably the reason I don't currently have Cotton in my team, because
Yep.
I think Kendrick Davis can be a Cotton light. I'm not expecting 50 Supercoach points a night. I have realistic expectations from the 36ers and Kendrick, but he's a captain option. Everything I've seen has made him a captain option, and just it's scary just to put your captain on an import that you haven't really seen play. You haven't actually seen play a regular season game in the NBL before.
Yep.
But I tell you what, the first game, Kendrick was looking fresh.
And as much as we're on the fence with Montrezl Harrell and his fantasy impact, I think his addition helps Kendrick Davis even more as another target who will just finish in traffic. Man, is this guy new to Supercoach?
He apparently big in FPL. So yeah, look, there's some guys in the chat saying Fade Davis, and I'm throwing that out there. But Isaac Humphreys was really good in this one as well. 20 and 11. The news of Trez popping in is just really dampening my expectations with Humphreys. He was great. I got him last year, fan favorite, but yeah, just Trez coming in is going to affect his, because Trez does what Humphreys does well.
Yeah, pretty much. And they're going to want the same spots. I really don't see them coexisting as well as what a Jarrell Martin would have, because we know from his days in Sydney, Jarrell Martin would stretch the floor. He could put it on the deck, rip it off the rim, go coast to coast. He was pretty unique in that sense, and that would have been a really good fit. But who knows how long he's out? It says 4 to 6 weeks. We know how that can turn into all season, but we've really got to keep an eye on this. But I think this helps the guards, but might impact Big Eye.
Yeah, and it should be noted that Trez has been injured for an extremely long time before coming into this. So yeah. The Breakers, we don't need to touch on them too much. But Mooney showed a bit of life, and I don't like Bolden this year.
You know what? I'm exactly the same as you there. Look, Mooney played 31 minutes, dropped 20 actual points, but you look down the rest of the stat line, there wasn't a hell of a lot of other action down there. They're going to rely on him to score this year. He's going to have to at least hit the 3 to open up for PJC, who had another solid game with 21 and 8 assists. He's going to be a lot come that sort of round 5, 6 onwards when they start to get their run of doubles. But yeah, Bolden, he started this one, which is good, 22 minutes. I am severely disappointed. This guy was NBA. He showed so many glimpses in Sydney. We made all these excuses that he's time sharing with Big Hunter. But tonight, 22 minutes, 7 points, shooting 30%, 1 of 7 from the 3. 1 rebound, 1 steal, 1 block. It's pretty ordinary.
Yeah, it was awful. Look, I just want to mention point per minute beast, Dane Pinot. 48 seconds and 1 block with 1 personal foul. So shout out to him. Huge fan of your
Better
game,
than
man.
a point a minute.
Yeah. That
You know
that
what?
was awesome.
How the mighty have fallen, because he was an absolute fantasy god in that year that he went down to Southeast Melbourne after playing in Sydney and picked him up for a song, and he just went to the moon. Almost tipped $1 million in the old scoring system.
Yeah,
And
man.
from there on, it's been all downhill.
Look, there's a game currently going now. We might touch on that maybe towards the end or in our next episode. We will head into Phil's Gold and our centers, but I've just got something to play first.
Want to take your Supercoach game to the next level? Inside Fantasy Sports are bringing you exclusive content all year round, such as weekly expert Q&As, team, trade, and captaincy advice, statistical deep dives, priority podcast questions, and tons more. So what are you waiting for? Get full access to the experts. Go to patreon.com/Insight Fantasy Sports and subscribe to Insight Unlimited today.
Mate, Brano made that for the sole reason that I didn't just walk off and get beers all the time. So he said, can you at least press it to look a little professional? So that you're not just like walking off and we can see your golf clubs and your old TV in the background. So yeah, shout out to Brano for that one. Yeah.
That's pretty special.
Mate, Phil's Gold is your segment. So what is Phil's Gold and why are we doing it?
Yeah, look, Fool's Gold is a segment. It's going to be a regular one. Look, sometimes all that shines and glitters is not gold. And we've found that out the hard way over the last couple of seasons. Look, we're flagging some guys that are starting to shine, bit of glitter, bit of glitz, bit of attention. But maybe if you dig a little deeper, it's not as good as we first thought. So I got 1 or 2 that I'm starting to look at. Dylan Windler is one of them. So we touched on that before. 33 rebounds in the G League piqued our attention. A real solid role. I think he played 81 games for the Cavs. Actually, not just fringe NBA. This guy was a baller. But we're hearing out of Perth. He's not in shape. It's going to take a while. He's injured now. He's got a bit of an ankle issue. I'm hoping that he is good, but not right now. I'm hoping that we drop in price, we can pick him up later.
I think he could develop into a player I want in my team. Hopefully when the schedule gets good.
Yep.
Maybe later on in the year when I need somebody that's 160K and has NBA experience. But at 277K with this stacked Perth team, and they don't fuck around. Like, if he's out of shape, he won't play.
No. And they've got options all down that roster. It's pretty stacked. Probably the most stacked roster outside of Sydney. My next little bit of Fool's Gold, and I don't even know if this is Fool's Gold right now. I'm talking myself in and out of it. Benny Henschel, where are you sitting on this?
I mean,
talk me out of it.
It's an air of caution. It's a Ben air of caution because he realistically cucked us last year. He come out and he did things exactly the same as this, and he walked into round 1 last year and did the same, and then everybody added him, and then at his price, you couldn't go anywhere because he's a bottom dollar guy. We didn't have the money to get him to a 110K guy. And then you couldn't afford to trade him out in round 3. So then those 110K guys that you really wanted to go from some of these cheap guys to become 150K. And they just got further and further away. And honestly, probably the reason some really good fantasy players finished 1,000th and not in the top 200, or finished 5,000th instead of the top 2,000, because of having Benny Henschel. I am going to need to be awfully close to a price rise before I consider getting him. If I lose out on 40K by not owning him round 1 and round 2, I'm okay with it.
100%. The Henschel handcuffs are really going to hold you back if you get done again. So, look, I'm glad you talked me out of it because I'm so close to looking at this. Like 40 Supercoach points last night. And look, credit to the kid. He's improved. His game has developed. But if you look at that roster, Bryce Cotton's playing 40 minutes a game. So that leaves Ty Webster starting at one spot. Let's say 25 minutes. There's 15 minutes left to carve up between everyone else. I don't see between him, Pepper, maybe Windless plays a little 2 and they push Bryce to the 1. There's probably about 3 to 4 guys who are chasing after a few crumbs. That's why it's fool's gold.
Yep, absolutely. Look, let's head into Brisbane and let's have a little bit of a chat because there's 2 guys that can pop under the same fool's gold. But I just want to start off with 2 guys that I think we both owned last year. Sam McDaniel and Josh Bannon have not played a preseason game. They've been injured. There's minutes to go around. Who do you think is fool's gold from these guys?
Yeah, look, throughout the preseason, Adele has been an absolute bucket. I think he's shown them something that they probably weren't even expecting. Now, a lot of the league didn't touch him after his little stint in Illawarra the other year. He's been playing in some obscure leagues in God knows where over the last probably 18 months.
Uzbekistan.
He's come back. He's creating shots. He's athletic. He's filling up the Supercoach stat lines. But the caveat is he is playing the 4 to the 3 spot. We've got Bannon to come back. Shula loves Bannon. He's the genuine starter there. He's been in summer league. He's just out with a finger or a hand injury, something like that.
Yep.
And the other one is Sammy Mack, who is Justin Shula's love child. He's enamored with the guy. And he's going to play big minutes. And especially on a team where you've got a lot of guys trying to put up points like Bateman and Keandre Cook, people like that, they need the defense and the hard-nosed play of Sammy Mack. So there's probably, between those 2 guys, 55 minutes a game that won't be there.
Yeah, I just think Prather's good enough. He's an ex-league MVP. He might be washed. He come in and he showed enough last year for them to want to re-sign him. I am with you on Deng Adele, but I'm pushing back a bit on Casey Prather at 130K. The only reason he's not in my team is the schedule, honestly. I think he will at least cover his break even if I'm wrong, because it's only going to be 12, 13. But look, he could be a 200K player at certain stages and be a stepping stone, but you do have 3 weeks to look at him.
And that's the kicker there. You should not have him to start your season. Have a look at him. If he's going to get that price rise, you can jump in before round 3. If we get news that those other guys are going to be out longer, or if Prather just starts to get into shape, he's looking a touch slow. Now, he's got some turnovers. He's trying to do things. The mind's seeing it. He's not quite there. The timing's off. If he puts it together and he gets that sort of 6th to 7th man role and he's coming in as a scoring punch, we understand Keandre Cook isn't really living up to expectations. So there is opportunity there, but I'm going to need to see a bit more. And you're right, the price is there. If you bring him in round 3, you get the price rise. Can you hang on then till round 8 on your bench before they hit
It's a long time. Yeah, it is a long time. My thing is he probably looks a bit quicker than he did last year. As somebody that watched some really shit Brisbane Bullets basketball last year, he was like
in a moon boot last year. He couldn't look any slower.
Yeah. He did play a few minutes.
Yeah.
Look, the last one, and I'm honestly not sure if he is a hit it out of the park or somebody that I want week 1, and I'm probably going to stay away from him week 1, but get him week 2 if he balls out, and it's Trez. He's the title of the show, but realistically, it could be anything at risk of sounding like he could be a 200K player. He could be a 350K player. I'm just not sure how he fits beside Hump, and that's my concern. What he does well, Hump does well.
Yeah. And we need to remember, the last time Adelaide brought in a guy with this much NBA experience, he went by the name of Donald Sloan. And we all know how that ended up for everyone. So Yeah, look, wait and see, buyer beware, but I'm I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic on this one.
Yeah, and he's one that could be a centre duel, which is an excellent segue into our centres. Um, Mate, what are you l- doing at centre? Should we just go through some of the most owned and I suppose work out if they're viable or not?
Yeah, look, for me, putting my squad together, the centre position and the backup centre have been the hardest one to settle on. Every time I think I've got it figured out, something pops up. So let's wrap around the rest of the league. Who's most owned?
So the most owned player, Rocco Zakarsky, despite the poor schedule, 95K, um, is a polarizing character. He is
Hmm.
just a guy that I want to watch basketball. We've seen him play in the flesh, play 3 or 4 years ago, and the guy is an absolute unit. Projected top 10 draft pick. I get it. It's just after playing 3 or 4 minutes, this kid looks gassed. He's puffing, and he could be playing with the best Supercoach center in the comp at the moment.
That's concerning. Um, yeah. Look, Terrell Harrison, in my opinion, schedule aside, is going to be the best Supercoach centre. Rocco's backing him up. Look, to be fair, Terrell does get in foul trouble. There's going to be some minutes to go around, but he's a high points per minute guy. It doesn't take him long to rack it up. A few blocks, he'll block 2 or 3 shots in a possession. It gets up there. But like we said, same with Prather, same with Dangadell. Why are we getting him this early? Could you not go someone else and then downgrade or upgrade to before that price rise in round three? I'm not fully understanding. I know the price is attractive to fit other pieces around, but maybe there's other ways to go.
Yeah, look, I'm with you there. Lockie Aldrich, 120K. I think despite being a backup, despite both of these guys maybe being 15 minutes per night guys, I think at their price, it's fine.
Yeah, and Albridge has the added bonus of being forward centre eligible, which is for me is really important this year to be able to massage guys between all those positions. Because if you got guys who are only centre, you're locked in between those two, which can make it difficult when you're trying to work it around to get all doubles on your court.
Mate, I've probably said enough about Lockie Aldrich before. One I am warming to, 29% owned Cam Oliver. The more I see Xavier Cooks as a trap. And X isn't even center eligible. I know we alluded to the fact that we would talk about him later on, but I'm starting to draw an X through X. He just screams red flag. Sorry, I should have brought him up in Phil's Gold, to be
Yeah.
completely honest, because he is Phil's Gold. He's 350K because he was the best fantasy player. Because of how many shots he makes, Supercoach doesn't fit him as well. And he's coming back, and Cam Oliver is looking like an absolute dog out there. And at 277K, if you have concerns about either one, of course you're going to air to the cheaper one. So just get Cam Oliver, not X.
Yeah, you're right. X, I think that price is inflated. It's based off his MVP season where he was an absolute god in the fantasy model. But we need to remember this scoring system does not suit him as much. You used to get extra points for offensive rebounds. You used to get, I think it was 4 points for a block. You used to get 10 points instead of 5 for a double double. You used to get 20 for a triple double, which he flirted with occasionally. I just don't think the way he accumulates the stats is going to be quite as dominant this year. You're right. The price, an extra 100K saving to go down to Cam Oliver. And Cam, despite coming off the bench, his points per minute has been sky high. I know we said early on in the series of pods that stay away from Sydney, but I am warming so much towards Cam Oliver. And right now he's sitting in my starting power forward position.
No, I am also with you there. Sam Froling, being 350K. I'm presuming these guys are playing him in his forward. He's actually the highest captain. I know we're not really thinking about week one yet, but he is the highest captain center out of everyone here. 16.4% owned. I cannot see any upside in Sam Froling.
No, I think he's at his ceiling. Look, he's had the keys to that team for a few years, and we've talked about it before. Justin Tatum, he likes to play inside out. Bit old school. I like it, but a lot of teams will play outside in. So Sam's going to get touches, but we do know that he has, a relatively low ceiling. He just never seems to be able to go on with it. Um, I don't think there's value there. The schedule's not amazing. I think there are a single, double, couple of singles. I think there's a lot more value and definitely a lot more upside at both forward center.
Mate, the next three I'm excited to chat about. Izan Almanza. I'm super excited just to watch him play is probably more like there's so many people on the Gold Coast right now, NBA scouts, guys like that. This is what's making the NBL a great league. And 115K, the closest comparison is to ex-teammate Alex Sarr. And, should be, in my opinion, a first-round pick next year. They're going to showcase him. But what we saw with Alex Sarr last year was he didn't play more than 20 minutes per night. So he has to be really good at a points per minute. I faded Sarr all last year. I actually see myself picking him up in NBA drafts so far. After we get to that 110 to 130 mark. But Almanza, I missed the boat on Sarr last year, and he did touch 220K. I'm treating Almanza exactly the same as Sarr. And when Perth are on a good stretch, 20 minutes per night should be enough for him to skyrocket in price.
Yeah, look, I'm with you. My concern is that I feel like they've got a bit more at the 4 spot this year. So he's backing up Pinder. We're hoping Pinder has a big one. You're right, that price is low. He's showing a fair bit. I will try and have him in my squad by the time Perth hit those doubles.
The next guy is Marcus Lee.
Ugh.
He was I know I've said that about four people right now, but he was genuinely the first center I got. I was like, there was a minute share last year. I thought if he could get out from behind Will Magnay, I thought this was going to be the next coming of Joe Luala-Chul. I thought he could have been a 320K. Joe Luala was a bit better, but I thought he could have been a 50K player at some stage. But 200K, losing minutes to Rob Lowe, doesn't seem injured, just doesn't seem good.
Yeah, I have got alarm bells ringing. He hasn't started at all, I don't think. I think Rob Lowe's been given the nod each game, and it seems like a genuine minute share. They both played. They both got plagued by foul trouble last game, and I think Lee ended up with a massive 2 Supercoach points in the end. He does not look good, and I don't think it's injury. We know he's there as a defensive anchor, but here's probably where I think it's going wrong. Rob Lowe stretches the floor. He shoots the ball incredibly well. Jack White is the focal point of that team. Jack White does his best work inside. Maybe by putting Marcus Lee there, he's taken away from Jack White's spot. They want the same spots, all that kind of stuff. So maybe that's why Lowe's getting the nod. Would you touch Lowe?
I have had iterations with him in my team, but I actually watched a bit of the Brisbane game and I thought Rob Lowe was shit. I thought Rob Lowe was ordinary. And then Marcus Lee still only got 12 minutes. I was just like, well, maybe they're just going to play a lot of Jack White at center and Rob Lowe plays 15 and Marcus Lee plays 15 and then Jack White plays 20 at power forward and 10 at center or something along those lines. That's sort of how I'm seeing these rotations shake out, which makes me want none of them.
It's important to note that the reason we were looking at these guys so closely is the schedule. So Melbourne's the only team that essentially has 3 doubles to start the season. So we're counting round 1 as a double because everyone's on the single. So really it's single, double, double. You can hold these guys a little longer term than other centers who have sort of patchier schedules. But the way they're both scoring, I'm looking at a guy like Terrell Harrison, who's given us 40s. I think he's going to cover them, even being
Yeah.
on singles.
Yeah,
Can
absolutely.
we talk
And
about Harrell?
you know what? I have to scroll all the way down to the 12th most. Jarrell Martin is higher owned than Tyrell Harrison.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
He's turning into a super pod. And I think the more we talk about Tyrell, the more he's going to be in both of our teams. I've actually had iterations of Jarrell Martin being in my team and currently is still kind of sitting there because I'm thinking like as a placeholder. So I just go Jarrell to Trez maybe if he pops in. That's sort of what I'm thinking. But I
Yeah.
think I'm going to stay away from Trez. But Tyrell is like 237K. And we just said that he could be the best center in Supercoach. That's better than Pinder. That's better than Willie Magnay. That's better than Cam Oliver. Like,
I was going through these guys earlier today, and I'm trying to like figure a way to compare them. I'm thinking, who's got the most upside as a cash cow? Who's got the most upside as scoring flat out points? Who has the best schedule? And the only thing that he is falling down on is the schedule. But I genuinely am starting to feel like I could hold him. I feel like he's just in Brisbane, just that much of a focus with such little competition behind him. And he knows it. He's playing like it's his team now. He's out of the shadow of Big Banger. He's got a 17-year-old kid behind him. Man, like the schedule's eating at me, and that's the only reason why I'm having some reservations. But I feel like if you're going to hold anyone through a tough schedule, this might be it.
so we talked about Rocco, highest owned player in the game, Tyrell's backup.
Yep.
Great. And we talked about getting him week 3.
Mm-hmm.
Why I don't feel that way about Tyrell Harrison is we could see price rises for both of these guys, and we have to make a choice. Now, if you have Marcus Lee and week 2, he actually drops in cash. It starts to get higher to get Tyrell Harrison. And Tyrell Harrison just looks like a guy that I could, like I spoke about Alex Sarr, I might not own all year because I've missed the boat. And I just want to get him. It's so easy to go to Rocco. It's going to be harder to get to Tyrell because I'm actually going cheaper at center than I'd probably like.
Yeah, 100%. I think the first 2 rounds you can hold him without too many worries. Like obviously everyone's on the single round 1, no dramas. So he's probably your pick at center, I think, scoring wise. So out of those next 7 or 8 rounds until they hit the doubles, there's some of those rounds where hardly anyone is on a double. There's some very scarce parts of the schedule, and center is reasonably weak this year.
It is weak, and it was always going to get weaker when we went across to Supercoach format due to the way that it scored. But yeah, I mean, maybe you don't chase doubles at center, chase doubles at those elite guard spots because that's the way that Supercoach is scored. And have weeks where you have your Cottons, have weeks where you've got your Kendrick Davises and that, and you just log Tyrell's score.
Yeah.
I just want to touch on 2 more before we go into question time. We're trying to keep these to an hour this year. Keanu Pinder, the most expensive center in the game, 347K, 12% owned. I get it.
I don't 100% get it straight up. He really disappointed me last year. He came across
Still
from
finished on
Cairns.
350K.
I don't know how. He came across from Cairns and he just couldn't figure it out last year. He tore a Hartlage in the finals. Yeah, I'm not overly sold on it. I really thought that he was going to have a massive year playing next to Cotton and be the beneficiary of that, and it didn't really eventuate. We got time to have a look at it, but I see the difference at centre between, and we're forgetting Cam Oliver can play up as well. A guy at 277 or a guy like Tyrell at about 232. I think you can save 100, grand, if not more, for the same production and put those dollars to better use elsewhere on your roster.
Yeah, there's been no iteration of me with Keanu Pinder, but like probably the best center in the game.
Potentially, if he plays to his ceiling, massive ceiling.
Speaking of massive ceilings, Big Bill Magnay,
Mm-hmm.
11.4% owned.
Yep.
Look, there's a reason they call him Big Willie. 317K, and hopefully, like, he was coming back from injury last year and playing those 20 minutes per night. As Tasmania loses McVeigh, I think Magnay could even become more relevant and skyrocket. But schedule doesn't really permit when it
It's
comes to the
patchy.
jack jumpers. It's patchy as shit.
Yeah. It's going to be hard to hold a guy at 350 or whatever he is to come in and out all the time like that. You're going to be burning trades, maybe for that, double-double, perhaps. But I don't know. I don't see how that team fits together right now. Like, we didn't like anything we saw at the Blitz. Hopefully we see a bit more at this FIBA tournament. Uh, Look, the upside is he's not really projected to have the minute share that he did with Marcus Lee. You got Gorjak Gak behind him, perhaps Fabian Krislovic. I think he's got more of a run. But yeah, I'm not high on Magnay, Supercoach wise. I think he may have hit his ceiling.
Mate, another two guys that we've spoke about tonight before we head into question time was Rob Lowe, 173K. All those guys would have added Rob Lowe after seeing how appalling Marcus Lee's been.
Mm-hmm.
And Jonah Bolden, I just do not understand. They've just seen him play in the NBA. You should not own a New Zealand player in your roster. Enough said.
Yeah. Have a look at the schedule. Check yourself before you wreck yourself with that one.
Girl, I got a question for you. Can I get an answer?
Mate, while we're getting some of these questions in, just appreciate some of the guys in the chat. Rod McGrath's come across and, really enjoying NBL Fantasy and Supercoach. We've tried some new things with the shorts. I believe we've got a bit of a soundbite so that we can do some more shorts. I call it more dribble, less dribble. So, yeah.
I'm keen to hear it.
Yeah. Pretty excited for that. Look, we're going to be trying some new things throughout the year. It's honestly a new thing for us, podcasting. I know it's our second year, so we're going to be trying some new things around. Corey Blackledge, I think he was in top 100 last year. Just asking what will Harrell be priced around. Just to reiterate, should come in at import price at 277K. Thoughts on Tyler Robertson, mate? Staying away despite his price?
Yeah, I'll be staying away. I just don't see the role there. They're pretty stacked at that. Well, they're stacked everywhere, aren't they? But I think he'll be more of a project. They were really high on him coming out of college. From what I've seen, he can flat out score, but so can everyone else in that team. And he's one of those guys that will suffer the most out of having so many mouths to feed.
Look, yeah, just appreciate everybody getting in. Matty Granger, preseason's ramping up. We're starting to see all our boys come back from last year. Mate, FPL Booth is back. Who are your three best players, 70 to 110K, mate?
All right. Well, look, 70 to 110K, you're probably looking at cash cow purposes, you reckon?
Yeah, I think so. You're going to make money, but you might have to play them on a double.
Yeah. All right. Off the top of my head, Dave O'Hickey, he's coming in at 106K, Illawarra Hawks. I'm feeling like he's going to have a sixth, maybe seventh man role. Look, he had a fair few turnovers last game, which lowered his score, but he's going to be one. You got one too, Mattrix?
Yeah, Rocco Zakarsky,
Yep.
95K. We spoke about Ben Henschel. I do still think if you're going a 69K guy, the forward guard eligibility does sort of pop up there. But yeah, you're starting to get me across a little bit on Kelly LaPalpe, or maybe just getting a Jackson McCoy in a few weeks' time.
Jackson McCoy, when he comes back from that DUI at 58K, he'll have a solid little roll in cans. Nick Marshall in Adelaide at 105K. Him and Lat Main have been fighting it out for that 3 spot. Nick's been playing really well. So these are probably some of the more playable cheapies who will give you some cash rises, but may actually tick the scoreboard over as well for you.
Yep. Agree. There's nobody else I'm really interested in there when I'm seeing those lower end guys. Probably a highly commended maybe to Nick Marshall.
Yeah, Glover.
Yep. Glover's 120, I think. So just
Aussie.
out.
110.
Why do the 36ers need Harrell when they have Humphreys?
Yeah. Look, Jarrell Martin is out. So he's out 4 to 6 weeks. He was their starting power forward, but also expected to be their backup center. Big Humph has a long history with injury. Last season was probably the first time we've seen him healthy in a while. I think they just need to take the best big man available. And it's not an ideal fit, but it's probably a connection that the new coach had from his NBA days. And I suppose this short out on a short-term contract, you're going to struggle to get anyone, aren't you?
Yeah, and I think Trez is going to try and earn himself. Like he's coming off an ACL, so he's going to try to show NBA teams that he can still play. He's still not that old. He is. Give me a sec. He's 30.
Okay.
So yeah, could still earn himself an NBA contract. Sixth man of the year. I know that we're talking about winning and we're talking about Supercoach and everything like that, but when we go with the NBL teams, I think Harrell's going to put bums on seats when it comes to games. And I know I tune into every game, but as a casual fan, I would be tuning in to watch Trez Harrell play. As an NBA fan, I will come back and watch NBL just to see how Trez Harrell's going. So, yeah, I think it's bums in seats is as good of an answer as they just needed a power forward.
Yeah, that's pretty much it in a nutshell.
Rod McGrath, appreciate you on tonight, mate. Saying White, Space Cam, and Kendrick Davis are locked in for him, and the rest are all moving parts.
Look, I'm very, very similar right now. Those three are shaping up to make the final cut for me. Look, we unpacked the centres tonight. That's where I'm having trouble around the rest of that. But hopefully over the next 8 days, everything becomes a bit clearer and you can shore up your bench and fill those other two starting positions.
Mate, when I was going through less dribble, more dribble, apparently I dribbled as I was going. Mate, yeah, I've had some big podcasts, and this one wasn't too bad, to be completely honest. So yeah, no, wasn't quite at the dribbling stage.
Sweat it all out on Sunday when you try and do your little update on your run.
Oh yeah, I'm actually going to go for a run in the morning. Actually, yeah, get ready for that. I am also curious about what happened to the spiral pass. Of course, an NRL reference, but what guard at Sydney other than Jalen Adams would you suggest? And who do you think is going to be their starting shooting guard?
I think Bull Quoll gets the start at shooting guard.
I've got a different answer.
What do you got?
I think maybe Liafa. I think maybe he will be there for defense. So yeah, I just think Liafa's going to be out there and Quell's just going to play a bench role.
Yeah, look, I don't really want to touch any of the guards at Sydney. No. I know we've made the exception for Cam Oliver, but Sydney are really, really stacked. You look at their guard rotation. You got Adams, you got Sean Bruce, you got Bull Quoll, you got Isaiah Liafa. Is this going to be a case of like they can all make a case for minutes? They can all play defense. Gorge has come out and said that, we're going to full court press all game. And as soon as you look gassed, you're coming out and the next guy's coming in. I just think he's going to be searching for something like he did with the Boomers. You're going to get some funky rotations. You're going to get really short stints and really inconsistent minutes. I just don't like that guard rotation at all.
Mate, it's kind of like what Matty Granger's asking here. It's kind of like the Melbourne guards, but with a worse schedule. So you could not pay me to add a guard from Sydney at the moment. But yeah, if I had to pick, I think Isaiah Liafa's maybe going to start there at the 2. But Granger's asking which Melbourne guard should he go with, which is honestly so Supercoach relevant. And I wish I had a crystal ball. But you have an answer.
Well, look, I'm assuming we're talking out of Illy and Delhi.
And Clark. And
I'm not touching
and
Clark.
and
He's
Goulding.
one-dimensional. He's off the bench when they get their full squad back. Illy's my guy. 250K. He's improved his game. I think paying up that extra 100K for Delhi, if you're paying an extra 100K, you may as well go to a Derek Walton Jr. or something like that. But yeah, what are you thinking? Could you take both? Mikasa Sukasa. What's your normal saying for everything's good?
Yeah,
Take 'em
like
all?
just soft taco, hard taco is the saying, I think. Um, but yeah, it's still Illy. He has looked a lot better this year. I had Illy for a lot of last year. Never owned Delhi. Kept saying Delhi can't keep doing this. He did it all of last year, and I still don't think he can be worth 350K at the end of the year. Basically, Illy's
Remembering
going to be my
last
guy.
year, Delhi's price got pretty inflated because of all the time that Illy was out with all that concussion.
Yeah, Illy's the best player. Comes off a great NBL one. Delhi's only getting older. Look, had a great year. Made the Boomers team, which I didn't expect. But yeah, Illy is my guy. We're staying away from Clark. We're staying away from Goulding. So
Yeah, no, solid answer.
I think we're finishing up on this one. Harrell does have that dog in him. Mate, anything else? When we might try and get a short done. We're going to start to do some Patreon Q&As as we get closer to the year. We'll probably be back in on Monday to give you your final Blitz review. We're going to be maybe getting some shorts out just to do some quick Blitz reviews on our Patreon and our Twitter. But mate, anything left?
Definitely worthwhile signing up to Patreon. You're not only going to get our starting teams, our final ones we published before the start of the season. You will get a lot of articles that are popping up. We've interviewed a lot of the top super coaches from last year for their boost strategies, which is going to come in really handy when you start thinking how you're going to use your 4 boosts. How do they get on the Patreon, Mattrix?
Mate, the link is below. We're actually filling our cash comps as we speak. In through there. It's free. You can join our free Patreon. We do charge for some of the premium content. But yeah, just get on there, have a good time, build our community team up. It's just a different platform that we're using. Of course, because if you'd like to support the show, we do monetize it, and we do, if you have specific start sit questions for either of us, we will answer them. We are actually going to have the winner of Supercoach in next week. On our Monday episode. So he's driving around in a brand new ASX. He's won more money out of NBL Supercoach than anyone in the world, I would say. But yeah, again, if you'd like to have a little bit of a dig to make a little bit of cash, we've got $25 cash comps, $50 cash comps, and $100 cash comps. We will keep filling them until everybody gets a spot in the leagues that they want. So there's a bit happening at Insight Fantasy Sports. We've, of course, got our NFL and NBA shows running at the moment for you sneakerheads. And then our BBL show is coming probably in about 6 weeks' time. So everything's happening, man.
That's it.
I'm going to head off. You've listened to an Insight Fantasy Sports podcast. Cheerio.